Summary of Where the Red Fern Grows by Wilson Rawls. After saving a dog from a fight on the streets of his town, 50-year-old Billy Coleman talks about the happiness and sadness that the wonderful disease of puppy love brought him as a child. By the time he is 10, Billy is set on getting a pair of purebred redbone coonhounds and becoming the best raccoon shooter in the Oklahoma Ozarks. Mama and Papa can't afford the dogs, even though Billy begs them to buy them for him. To save money, Billy sells bait to local fishermen and fruit to his beloved grandpa, who runs a small general store, over the course of 2 years. Billy finally gets the money he needs and asks his grandfather to help him order the dogs from a kennel in Kentucky. You can only send the dogs as far as Tahlequah, which is 20 miles from Billy's house. He doesn't want to wait for a ride into town, so Billy sneaks out of the house in the middle of the night and walks to Tahlequah to get the dogs. When Billy gets to town, the kids there stare at him and make fun of him because he looks like a rural boy. Billy goes to the depot to get the pups. The station master is kind and helps Billy get them out of their crate and into his gunny sack so that he can take them home. When Billy is leaving town, he is stopped again by a mean group of kids, but a nice sheriff tells them to leave. Billy takes his dogs back home through the woods. He hears the cries of a mountain cat when they stop for the night. When the cat cries, Billy adds his voice to the howls of his dogs. He doesn't feel scared when his dogs are with him. Bill tells his parents he's sorry for running away without their permission and for ordering 2 dogs without telling them. Mom, Dad, and Billy's little sisters are happy about the dogs, though. Billy named them Old Dan and Little Ann. While Billy's parents help him build a doghouse and make collars for the dogs, Billy tells his mama that he asked 2 years ago that God would give him the patience to save up for his dogs. Mama says that God must have heard Billy's prayer. Billy traps a raccoon with the help and advice of his grandfather. He then uses the raccoon's hide to start teaching the dogs. A close bond forms between Billy and his dogs as he works with them every night. Bill knows the dogs understand him even though they can't talk. Billy takes his dogs hunting on the first day of shooting season. He tells them all they have to do is tree a raccoon, which means to chase it up into a tree, and he will do the rest. The hunt is happy and exciting, and Billy starts to cry with happiness as he leads his barking and crying dogs through the mountains in search of their first raccoon. The largest sycamore in the valley is where Dan finally plants his first raccoon. Billy knows that the only way out is to cut down the tree because he can't climb it. Bill knows he has to keep his promise to his dogs, even though the job at hand scares him. Billy cuts away at the tree slowly with his axe over the course of several days, only stopping to eat and rest at home often. Billy's dad and grandpa tell him to give up, but Billy reminds them of what he promised. Billy is almost able to cut down the tree, but he can't do any more work because his hands are getting terrible blisters. As Billy asks God to help him finish the job, a strong wind comes up and knocks over the tree, letting Dan and catch the raccoon. During hunting season, Billy and his dogs go on a lot of fun adventures, but they also get into a lot of dangerous situations. One night, Dan gets stuck in a muskrat den. And Billy have to work together to get him out. And gets stuck on an ice floe in the river one night while she is hunting in the cold woods. Billy comes to her aid just in time by attaching the handle of his light to a long cane and pulling her out. Reuben and Rainey Pritchard, 2 brothers from a family of bootleggers and thieves, bet Billy that his dogs can't catch the famous ghost coon, a raccoon that lives in the woods near their family's farm. This is the worst thing that happens to Billy and his dogs. Grandpa tells Billy to take the bet, and he does. He meets the Pritchard boys in the woods near their house. And Dan finally catch the infamous raccoon after a long night, but Billy grows to respect the animal so much that he won't let his dogs kill it. Reuben gets mad and starts beating Billy for having chicken livered while Reuben and Billy are fighting. Reuben and Rainey's blue-tick dog gets into a fight with Dan and Ann. When Reuben sees what's going on and grabs Billy's axe to attack Billy's dogs with it, he trips and the axe goes through his gut. As Rainey runs home in shock, Billy pulls the axe out of Reuben's stomach as he is dying. What happened is told to Billy's parents, and the next day, a search party goes out to find Reuben's body. The next day, Billy's grandfather calls him to the shop to talk about what happened and say sorry for including him in the bet. Grandpa then tells Billy that there is a big shooting contest coming up soon nearby. He also tells Billy and Dan that they are all competing in the contest. After a few days, Billy, Grandpa, and Papa get in Grandpa's buggy and drive to the competition. They are determined to win the big prize, which is a beautiful golden cup. Bill gets worried when he hears two different owls hoot at the same time, which is a sign of bad luck. Bill, his dad, and his grandpa set up their tents on an acre of land next to the other shooters who have come to the competition. Even though Billy is nervous around hunters with so much experience, he puts Little End in a dog show. When she wins Best in Show, he is shocked, touched, and overwhelmed. Bill and his dogs rest and get ready for a few days while they watch the other hunts go through eliminations. When Billy's night to hunt, a judge goes downriver with him, Papa, Grandpa, and the dogs. Dan and kill 3 squirrels without much trouble. The judge is amazed at how well they worked together and tells them they will be going to the finals the next night. That night, Dan and easily caught their first raccoon. As Billy and Papa skin the animal, they see that a storm is coming. Papa is worried that the storm will make it hard to hunt, but Billy says that the raccoons will come out of hiding when it storms. As sleet and snow fall, Billy and his team keep going. But when the storm gets worse and they can't see the dogs anymore, the judge tells them to go home. But Billy doesn't want to give up. He prays that old Dan's words will be heard by God. Soon, old Dan starts to cry, and Billy follows him to a nearby slope. After getting to the tree, Billy finds that Grandpa is not with the rest of the group. When Billy and the others go back, they find Grandpa in a field. He has hurt his ankle by falling, but he is still living. 3 raccoons were hiding in the empty tree that Billy's dogs had cut down. Dan and catch 2, but the third one gets away. Billy is aware that they need the third animal to win. Dan and also seem to get it, and they run into the storm to find the last squirrel. As the storm ends and dawn comes, a search party shows up at the ditch and helps Grandpa get back to camp. Someone in the group says they saw Billy's frosty dogs walking around a nearby tree. Then Billy goes up to the tree and helps his dogs catch the raccoon. When they get back to camp, the head judge tells everyone that Billy won the game and gives him a golden cup and $300. In a nearby town, Grandpa goes to see a doctor to fix his ankle. While Grandpa is getting better, Billy, Papa, Dan, and go home to a happy group of girls and Mama. Mama is happy to say that God has heard her prayers when she sees the money Billy has won. She and Papa fed the dogs 2 huge plates of food that night and prayed next to their doghouse while Billy watched from his bedroom window, confused. As the shooting season comes to an end, Billy continues to take his dogs out every night to hunt. They smell something that isn't a rat one night. Billy thinks it's a bobcat, so he lets his dogs chase it through the trees and trap it. But as Billy walks up to the tree to scare the animal away, he learns that his dogs have trapped a dangerous mountain lion. Dan and tear into the mountain lion's meat while Billy tries to kill it with his axe. This leads to a horrible, bloody fight. In its fight back, the cat badly hurts Dan and before finally giving up and dying. As Billy checks on his hurt dogs, he sees that little Anne's wounds are mostly on the surface, but Dan has a terrible, deep cut on his belly. It starts to leak out of Dan's gut as they walk home. Mama tries to stitch up old Dan's wounds back at the house, but it doesn't work, his cuts are too bad, and by the time dawn comes, he's already dead. Billy tries to keep his mind on the fact that he still has Anne, but it's clear right away that something is very wrong. And won't eat and keeps trying to hide in the bushes and brambles at the far end of the land. Billy and Papa can tell she doesn't want to live anymore. And crawls to old Dan's grave on a nearby hillside one night to end her own life. The boy asks his mother why God took his dogs away and made him feel so bad. Papa and Mama have been praying for a long time that they could save enough money to move back to town and make sure Billy and his sisters could go to school. Now that they have the money from the competition, their prayers have been answered, but Mama was afraid she would have to leave Billy and his dogs with Grandpa. Mama says that their family won't be split up now that the dogs have died. Mama tells Billy to believe that God has heard her prayers. Bill, on the other hand, can only feel pain as he buries Little and next to her brother. After a few months, Billy is helping his folks move back to town by packing up their things in their wagon. Before he leaves, Billy goes back to the graves of his dogs and notices that a beautiful red plant has grown between them. Billy calls his family over to look at the fern because he remembers a local story about a red fern that was placed by angels and makes the ground where good souls have died holy. The fern must be God's way of helping Billy understand why his dogs died, say Mama and Papa. Billy says he finally gets it and is okay with their deaths now. At the end of his story, the older Billy says that he has never been back to the Ozarks, but he knows that if he does, he will find the red fern still blooming on the mountain where Dan and were buried all those years ago.
About the author. Wilson Rawls was born in the Ozarks in Oklahoma and grew up during the Great Depression. Because of the crash of the economy, his family had to move west to find work. Rawls himself became a carpenter and, while traveling around North and South America, did odd jobs and even went to prison. While he was traveling, he kept writing. When he finally got settled in Idaho, he married his wife and started turning his short stories into books. The novel Where the Red Fern Grows, which was released in 1961 to great acclaim, is partly based on Rawls's childhood when he roamed the Ozarks with his pet bluetick hound. Rawls's best-known book is Where the Red Fern Grows. It has been praised with the Evansville Book Award, the Great Stone Face Award, and other honors. It has sold over 7 million copies and is a favorite book for school-aged kids. Summer of the Monkeys, which came out in 1976, is another book by Rawls. Summer of the Monkeys is also about a boy growing up in rural Oklahoma, just like Where the Red Fern Grows.
Hope we summarized it fully and you liked it. Please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel so that we are motivated to create more videos.